Hello, nerds, and happy Halloween. Welcome back
Yeah,
to the
happy
game.
Halloween. Happy Halloween.
All right, we've made
Love
it to
it.
two episodes, which is one episode more than a lot of people ever make it to on a podcast. How the hell you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. It's great, and it's a Halloween episode, so the occult is with us. That's great.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know you got some stuff that you did some research on, and I don't want to poo poo the fact that you did work because I do exactly zero show prep. But I completely had forgotten that I have experienced a number of real life ghost stories over the years, and it's Halloween time. Normally, I'd share a lot of these, but because of work and things, I really haven't had an opportunity to
Oh,
go
okay.
over. So I figured tonight we can hit on a ghost story or two. I got a couple of really good ones.
Excellent,
Uh,
excellent, excellent.
yeah, we can transition that into tabletop terror, which was just really me complaining about my struggles to use virtual tabletops effectively during our playtest. A couple, maybe some gaming horror stories, and then
No, and then we can talk about you know how social media has sort of affected the game
well,
overall
speaking
and
of
role
horror stories,
playing.
that would be the biggest.
Yeah, it is a pretty big horror story, but it's interesting. It's an interesting story. How about that?
Yeah, I think it is. Well, before we get into it, two things. One, we should definitely come up with an actual formal kind of intro thing that we do. But two, let's do some shameless advertising and a couple of quick plugs before we get into the Halloween horror stories. This is the Game podcast presented by Dungeon Studios. I'm your host, Grom, Grumpy Old Man Merwin, joined by the inscrutable, ever
Doc,
insightful Doc.
yeah, Dr. Pletorius, Mike Puglia, as I'm really known in real life, my secret identity, I guess you'd say.
Yes. Wonderful. As far as Dungeon Studios go, our first ad of the night, not that we have any official copy, but I'll just make it sound like I'm a 40s radio announcer. Coming your way in November, be on the lookout for Volume 2 of the Eneron Adventures series. 6 adventures, varying levels, coming out on Kickstarter this month,
Ooh,
giving you
la.
access to more of the world of Eneron, the setting for which Dungeon Studios is putting out modules and settings books and various other source books. You can find them on the interwebs at all the usual places, the Facebooks, I believe the Patreons,
Yeah, yeah,
and various and sundry social media outlets, which we'll talk about later.
yeah.
And
That's
Doc, I know
that's what we're
you've
talking
had a
about
busy
tonight.
weekend, showing up on a couple of live streams. So, who do you got to plug and say thank you to?
Well, I think the first people I have to thank is Mammoth Factory. They had their monthly rampage where they released their Astro Voyage collection designs, and they're going to be test playing those modules. Excuse me, those modules have already been test played, and they're going to be coming out, and they have a whole series of stuff coming out. They had just finished launching another really successful Kickstarter, and I got to hang out on their YouTube rampage and wave and say hi to folks. And it's really, I never realized how many people were into figures. Do you play with uh, miniatures and paint minis?
Are you asking if I play with toys as a grown ass old person? Of course I
Absolutely.
do.
All right. All right.
Obviously, I play with the toys. Yeah, no,
That's great.
I am a printer of the 3D minis, a player of many war games and whatnot, and
All
I
right. So you
believe
know the
a
scene.
fairly good painter.
Yeah, well, it was just it's amazing to me because even just being there, they're having a big painting contest, and you can hear all the participants talking about the different Discord channels that are having different paint contests and how they run them and the different committees, and it's it's huge. We'll talk about more about that later on, but I had to definitely say a shout out to them too. Um, but the real thing I did the research on, and I kind of want to poke you when I first came back to D&D, obviously I was playing online, Zoom with my friends, and didn't know anything about virtual tabletops beyond, you know, roll, D&D Beyond, just using that, linked with your friends, and we could see the dice, and then we're using Zoom as our, voice and video. I had no idea there was something like Discord or Roll20 or Foundry or Owlbear Rodeo or any of that stuff. So it was just kind of neat for me when I first started getting involved with it. And I was just able to be in a test play with you, being the GM. It was great, by the way. And we used Roll20, and we noticed we got a few snafus here and there. I just wanted to know what you think about Roll20. I mean, it was created by 3 college roommates back in 2012. So they're looping up on what, 10 years
Okay.
of being out there. The price is now $50 a year, or $100 depending on options. They're saying you can use desktop browsers, limited mobile apps. So what tell me what you think about it. I mean, you've been using it for how long?
Well, let me first start by saying, one, none of these things are we officially affiliated with yet, but I do
No,
sell
absolutely
myself
not.
cheap.
Absolutely
So
not.
if they want to throw money our way, I'm not going to say no, and I may give you a favorable review. Secondly, no, actually, I'm a little older with the online gaming than you are. My original home group, which are the topic of a little series I like to call "I Hate My Home Game," which is horror stories from my gaming past, which I haven't got into on the stream yet, but I will eventually. But no, we started out and actually used Skype for voice
Okay.
and video,
Okay.
which was a nightmare because it's a resource hog.
Yeah, but that was the
We thought about,
earliest. I mean, technology wise, from Flash Player to Skype was the leap it made. But go ahead.
yeah, well, no, but so we had thought about using that, but the lack of being able to kind of see what was going on, we were trying to hold the webcam over a map, and it was never going to work. And then I found Roll20, which was the first VTT that I ran into, and we got in, got in there with both feet early on, and it was we tried to do video and voice on there, and unfortunately, we had innumerable technical issues. Now, in fairness, I do believe that is because some of my friends moved out to a place where they haven't invented the internet yet. I'm fairly certain they don't have running water or toilets. And on top of that, what actually led to kind of the demise of that online game, besides some philosophical differences that I will save for another segment, but it was relayed back by a few people that they weren't interested in investing any sort of significant resource into technology to play Dungeons and Dragons online.
Right,
It
right.
wasn't worth it to them. And at that point, I said, well, if it's not like they were saying, oh, well, I can't afford a new computer. Because they're buying PlayStations and Xboxes and video games left and right. They could certainly have afforded the computer. For them, it just wasn't they weren't committed enough to make it worth spending the money. So poor internet and not good hardware. And then at that point, I'm like, well, if you aren't interested enough in doing it to invest to make the experience good for everyone, I'm not interested in investing the time to create a game for you that you're then going to ruin the experience of because I can't hear you or your system locks up all the time or
Right, right.
all
No,
these
that makes
problems.
sense. No, no,
Yeah.
that's the big pay to play thing too. Paying to play. What's the setup and how are you using it and what's available, special effects, all that. Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, no. So anyway, but we did use Roll20 for a while, and it was a learning curve, and there were things that you tried to do early on that didn't work very well, and then you found a solution. For example, you were chatting right before we started about tabletop maps and the quality of things people are doing, artwork and AI stuff, and all those kind of things. One of the issues with Roll20 when I was using it before, and I don't know if they've ever fixed this because I found a workaround and never went back. I started out trying to build the maps on the virtual tabletop using their assets
Right, right.
graphic files that I would hunt through this list of them looking for free ones because I'm poor,
No,
finding
absolutely. Smash
finding
and
stuff
grab,
that I
smash
could
and grab.
yeah that
No,
I could
no.
drag onto there.
Yeah.
And once you got over 6 or 8 different assets on the screen plus tokens, the performance was super wonky. It would freeze up. You'd have to refresh. Things would lag or bounce around the screen. You get a lot of
Right,
phantom
right.
inputs because, again, I don't know if it's 100% my computer specs at the time. I believe, 2 computers post our
Were you
start with
trying
that.
to use something separate for your voice and video still?
No, we were doing it all in the browser at this time.
Okay, okay.
So we ran into a ton of problems. And then I realized that, okay, well, these are just, JPEGs or PNG files. I have a little bit of a background with desktop publishing. So I'm like, well, I'll just pull all these separate pieces into, a photo editor or a digital art program. And then I will just composite them together myself. It gives me more control over the maps. I can pre-do them and
Yeah,
I can
no,
save
no,
them as,
no, absolutely. I mean, that's what I did when we first started, was using like a Photoshop software and doing
yeah,
everything myself with layers and,
yep.
masking and erasing. Yeah,
Yeah, and then
absolutely.
you just squish that down into a JPEG. It's a small file size, and then I could drop that in the background.
Right,
Benefit:
right.
it's only one resource, so it improved performance a lot. Downside is, anything you had on there decoratively. Say you were doing a tavern fight and you had tables and chairs. Well, they can't move on the map layer anymore because it's one image.
Of course, yes.
But it was a resource savings. So then eventually we moved on, and we hadn't started. I had not started using Discord yet. We moved back into trying to do Skype and Roll20 because the Roll20 video and voice thing also had problems. People
Okay,
freezing and
all
cutting
right.
out and thing having to refresh. So
But did you get off? Did it work then when you were using both?
no,
Or
no, it still had problems. As you saw last night. There's some things. So, in fairness, though, I could complain about anything you gave me. That's just what I do in life. It's my
all
favorite
right, all
hobby.
right, all right. So now the other one that I use frequently is Owlbear Rodeo. And you can go in there without a subscription,
Hmm.
no license, it's free and run on any desktop. And then what's really cool is like it'll save your game. You can throw your own maps on there. When I was doing my test play and I was like Owlbear Rodeo, folks are like, no, I'd come play if you were at Roll20. Now, what's that about? Why is someone not coming to play a test play?
Well,
Because I'm playing on Owlbear as opposed to Roll20.
well,
Tell me.
I will give you my speculative answer and finish my initial thought. So, all in all, Roll20 is a perfectly functional and viable thing. It handles systems. So it rolls dice. But you can also grab stuff from their compendium. Drag and drop
Right,
spells and
right.
items into the character sheet. It does all those things. So outside of some potential technical things that might not be its fault entirely, it is a fully functional one. And I think the reluctance to change, to answer your question, is that people find something, and then once they have invested their time and resources in learning it, they don't want to change. It's a matter of
No,
comfort and
no, that makes sense. I mean, that's true with my players too.
yeah,
My players will not leave Zoom because that's what they want to use, and I'm not going to leave Zoom because that's my crew. So,
yeah,
I
no,
mean, I get
100%.
that.
And there's also, I don't know how it works on other tabletops. I've seen a few, looked at some stuff, but I haven't actually tried to use them as a DM, anyways, or as a player. But Roll20 allows you, I had these set up. It's a great time saver, and it's one of the reasons that I don't want to give up on using Roll20. It's just just out of hand. But you build in, you have a library of assets, so sound, music, maps, tokens, things like that. Plus, In Roll20, you can set up macros, and if you wanted to go to the extreme, which I was thinking about doing for a while, then my online game fell apart and we stopped playing. But you can get actually into their scripting language and do much more complicated stuff.
No, yeah, no. I had done a training once where you can get all your monsters to do simultaneous attacks and different timing or spread out fire attacks, and
Yeah.
no, I've seen all kinds of neat stuff you can do with it. No, the other one I want to talk about. You said that's it for you. I did get to play test play with Above VVT, which is
Okay.
like a Chrome browser extension for D&D Beyond. You've never used that at all?
No, like I said,
Okay,
we
that's
we stuck with Roll20 because it was the other big benefit is that only one person has to pay for the account.
yeah, well, I guess with Above VVT, not I didn't really have an account or anything. Again, just using a free D&D Beyond account, I was able to jump in a game. They just give you the password. You join their campaign like you do a regular D&D Beyond campaign. And then once you're in there, and you hit spacebar, and basically that's it. Spacebar is taking you back and forth from your virtual tabletop to your character sheet. Um, I thought it was really, really neat. It is actually free. It will run on any Chrome desktop browser. I'm also suspecting that one D&D will sort of kind of work with Above VTT. It sounds like their virtual tabletop, if that makes sense. What I'm describing, the brand's virtual tabletop. But
Hmm.
that one works very well, and again, a free as opposed to the Roll20, paying for anything.
Okay.
Um, but there are a lot more out there. I was really surprised. Fantasy Ground is
Yeah.
something that actually installs on your computer hard drive. Have you ever heard
Yeah.
anything? Have you heard about that
Yeah.
one?
So if correct me if I'm wrong,
No, you go right ahead.
I think Fantasy Grounds is one of the VTTs where everybody has to have a copy of the software. But
Yeah, it says
I heard that it is potentially one of the best or the best one out there.
yeah.
But
It
there's
says
that.
what I have with info I have. It says there's a free demo, of course,
Yeah.
so you can like test it out. Then there's a one-time payment of $39, and then all the players will need a license. And then I guess now they have a fee. It's 149. Players do not need licenses. So
Huh.
perhaps they are trying to, break out into that. If you're a DM, you can offer that fantasy ground service out to other people running on Windows, Macs, and Linux. Do you know anyone who uses
Like
Linux?
Linux, not since I was in college.
All right, I'm just wondering because I still don't really know anyone who uses Linux, but it's still listed there. Um, Anything else about Fantasy Ground, or
No,
could
just
add to
just no,
that?
just I've heard good things, but it was what kept us away from trying it was, again, I had a group that wouldn't pay money for technology or internet, so getting them to drop 30 or 40 bucks on the tabletop itself, not so much. But I've heard good things about that.
All right. So then, I guess the next big boy after Roll20 now is one called Foundry. Have you heard of
Yep.
Foundry?
No, also again, Foundry's in one of the top tiers. I just had a former player we were chatting tonight, and she had mentioned that they had started to use it, and it was similar. Like you buy one person pays for it, everybody else then can get into it and use it. And she was raving about it. So
And you are right. Again, that's exactly what my research points to. Players can join through a browser instead of connecting to the GM's computer. But again, they say it's easy to learn. Price is $50. Um, it says though here the interface requires hours to learn, and the content library isn't as large as Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds, and you were already saying, you know, that was your thing. You went to that library, in Roll20.
Yep.
That was a big thing. I know some people that were also working on selling their own things at the Roll20 marketplace.
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to fire it up for the playtest is that two reasons. One, you know, if we have assets that are commercially usable or self-created, which some of the diagrams I have in my module already were made by me. Like,
Right, right. Are
could
unique. They're
potentially build
unique.
that into and sell, any of our modules, mine that I'm putting in there, on Roll20 as a separate entity. So I'm
Okay.
like, well, if I can build the game on Roll20 and it's good, have all the macros and shortcuts and everything loaded right in there.
Okay.
Why not make it a viable product?
Now
So,
you're a big game guy. So have you heard of
yep.
Tabletop Simulator, which is an online?
Yeah. Oh no. The players I dragged in to suffer through our playtest, three of them. We are a frequent foursome
Okay.
on
Okay.
Tabletop Simulator, except that they they're a little well. There's no easy way to say this, but they're promiscuous when it comes to tabletop games, and they play the field a lot, and they can't commit to any one game for more than like 8 seconds. So
Okay.
we've barely. So they'll buy them from Kickstarters, or we'll get them on Tabletop Simulator. We'll play it once, maybe twice, where I'm like just getting comfortable with the rules. I'm like, all right. Like, I'm starting to think of strategies and how we're, okay, yeah, I can't wait to play again. I want to, really going to start getting into the meat of the game. And they're like, hey, we got a new one. We're going to play this game this time. And I'm like, God damn it, I just learned the last one.
All right. All right. So I guess they're also have a thing now, Stream Workshop. Have you heard of this?
I believe so. I think so. They have always had. I don't know what it's called. So I might be conflating two different
No, you've
things.
been doing very good. No, go ahead.
No,
Excellent. Go
but
ahead.
they. Well, thank you for telling me that I've been doing good. I thought
No,
I was
you've been
awesome
doing
already.
great.
I
No, you've been
appreciate
doing
that.
great. You haven't done any of this research? Keep going. Go.
No, no, I was always that kid that didn't study for the test and still passed.
Right.
So,
Okay. So
so
tell
that's
me.
I apologize. That's my annoying superpower.
So what do you know about Stream Workshop? Tell me.
No, so I don't know if I'm thinking of the same thing. That might be something new,
Okay.
but in Tabletop Simulator, there from at least from when we started, which is about 5 years ago, there is a literal tabletop that you get, like, looks like kind of like a pool table essentially.
Right. Right.
Wooden outside, green inside. But you can go in there and you could use that as your virtual tabletop, and you could actually drag 3D buildings and assets onto the table the same way you would take tokens for any of the board games that are on Tabletop Simulator, and actually drag them and drop them on there. Everybody gets a little slot around the table. And they'll have a character sheet there.
Excellent. No, you're right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You've nailed it. Environment essential for 3D sandbox
Yep.
customization. No, it's funny. $20 runs on Windows, Max, Linux
Yep.
via Steam. You know what's really cool though? It's funny you talk about pool table, billiard tables, right? Back in the day, we used to have to go to Jersey to buy modules because you couldn't get them in New York City, and we used to go to a billiards or a place was called the Game Room in the Woodbridge Mall. So I always associate pool tables with Dungeons and Dragons. It's kind of funny
Really?
that way. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, see, my experience is much different in my misspent youth. I associate pool tables with the bar or with the actual pool hall.
Oh no, we did the pool halls after. I mean, remember I was in junior high, so that was the only place to go get two Maharas.
Really? Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm the opposite. So my old man had three hobbies in life: fishing, shooting pool, and playing guitar. I'm bad. I'm bad at two of those three things, and I hate the third. So I actually grew up, going to the pool halls with the old man, and for me the big treat was I would show up, and once he got sick of me bothering him, and he wanted to go shoot pool, probably gambling, That's what pool players do. That's when I would get the bacon cheeseburger with the fries from the little, deli counter in the pool hall. And then I would get a pile of quarters to leave them alone, and I would go play Dig Dug. And
Oh, Dig Dug's great. Dig Dug's great.
there's another one. I can never remember. I remember it in my
Cubert?
mind
Was it Cubert?
clearly. What? No, it wasn't Cubert. I had that in my Atari. But no, there was another game that was it. I think it had a weird kind of carousel clown thing going on, and it was kind of like Dig Dug, but different. Kind of like you'll get like an American version of a side shooter, and then there's a Japanese version that has crazy wacky shit in it.
Okay.
And I remember they had those two arcade games. Plus, they had what was the old golf game? It had like the roller trackball, not Golden Tee, not the good one that they came out with later, but a real chintzy one. And I remember it, and it had a little window, and it was like just above DOS graphics with like a little bit of color, like green for things. But you would roll the trackball to shoot. To hit the ball, and there were I know on some of the holes there was a fucking bird that would fly around and you'd whack it with a ball.
All right. Anyway, let's get back to tabletops. Let me get you back on track there.
Yeah, sorry.
All right. So there's one called Astral. Started in 2017. It was started, and 4 years later, it was like on the verge of taking on Roll20. But then it fell apart. It's saying as of October 2021, they are leaving active development. So
Really?
that's kind of a bummer if you're involved with Astral VVT. I don't know what they're up to, or maybe I'll look into that a little bit, report on that. But that was kind of interesting to me to see one had like sort of got up there and then put it out. There's one that's a whiteboard sort of designed for GMs. Now, being an ex-teacher made me think of, using a smart board in the classroom or whatever. It's called Shemppy, Shmeppy.
I have not heard of that.
And it's just sort of a whiteboard tool to do improvised maps. Easy for players to connect to, but they're saying there's $5 a month for GMs. I'm not exactly sure what that system is. So that one is kind of interesting. The other two that I peeked at were Tailspire.
I was just going to ask if you were going to bring that one up.
All right, no, go ahead. What do you know about Tailspire?
No, I think Tailspire was either still in or recently was a Kickstarter. I've seen numerous ads for it. I've watched a bunch of videos. It is one that I'm the most interested. I was very interested in because it is high quality 3D rendered isometric maps.
Yep.
It has effects built into it and whatnot, but it doesn't do systems at all. So it doesn't have any of that capacity.
Right. I think the other thing they say here, I think that they include is your players will get the best possible version of what's happening around them. So I'm also thinking when they're in a trap, there's the spikes are shooting out of the floor and stuff like that. It's got that really going. The pricing, they have a $24.99 regular price. It looks like there's a big 25% off sale going for $18.74. I don't know what that all involves. And like I said, I just pulled this reel together.
Okay.
Another one in that same 3-dimensional map, but they're talking about the big thing with this one. You can export to 2D and then sculpt stuff into customizable terrain and props is the RPG engine. Have you heard of that at all?
Name sounds familiar, but I don't have any details. So you can sculpt a 2D map back into a 3D one?
Well, it sounds like it says a virtual new tabletop that lets you build free-form 3-dimensional maps that can be exported to 2D. You can sculpt and paint the terrain around the map and fill the world with customizable characters and props.
Huh.
Um, so I don't know, that kind of even sounds like a Pathfinder thing too, where customizable weapons. And it says the space on the board seems a little small at first, but if you scale things down, you really don't realize that there's more space than you think. 19.99
Huh.
is the cost for that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
just
I gotta tell you.
it's just amazing to me, because then you look at Facebook and you see all these people who are like setting up their TVs on the pool tables, or they're
Yeah, I thought
using the
about doing that.
plexiglass. You haven't done one of those yet?
I
No.
no, I have thought about it,
Yeah.
but I am old, and I came up, with miniatures on a rollout marker, dry erase marker battle map,
Right.
and then
Right.
got into the wargaming and got into building terrain, and I love that shit. As as a very bad digital artist, which I am not. I aspire to be a bad one someday. I'm not even that good. And a frequent, shall we say, web sourcer of content and things. I've run into some limitations making maps for that, because there are some things that just don't quite work. Showing changes in elevation and height and whatnot on a 2D map is just never gonna. It's never gonna be that. You can get
Oh
some nice
yeah,
ones
no, yeah, doing
that
kind of
mimic.
vertical things,
Yeah,
yeah.
they kind of mimic that, but nothing really great. And then two, there's it's just like rolling real dice around a real table with real people. There was something about having excuse me, having everything out there, having the minis, being able to get down at the miniature eye view, and just feel immersed. Is just something that is
Oh no,
always.
yeah, no. Yeah, I've seen the. I was talking to one guy I was test playing with, and they run the campaign, and they actually put the micro cameras down on the in the model.
Yeah.
So you have like the view. No, I think that stuff is great. No, that's great. I love it. Um, it's intense. Again, it's really neat to see how the game has completely expanded since I've come back to it.
Yeah.
I said I took some years off, and I'm thinking there's nobody playing D&D. There's nobody play. Geez, there are people playing D&D in their basements still regularly. There are more
Yeah.
people meeting on Facebook and Discord and everything else, playing and model making, and it's crazy. It's the amount is astounding.
Yeah.
Um,
It is a fully encompassing hobby that can go from as simple as sitting around the couch, creating, using your imagination with your friends, creating a story, maybe rolling some dice, all the way up to elaborate, technical things. Which I don't think any conversation about the virtual tabletops would be complete without me bitching about how much I don't trust Wizards of the Coast and their upcoming One D&D initiative, but also, and more importantly, where we think the game space is going, which is the question that I would fire at you before I get to ranting.
yeah. I think
I'll
I
throw it
think
to you.
I think the important thing about the game space is, like I was saying, like with my friends, they're on their Zoom. They like their Beyond. Um, we got plenty of stuff for plenty of campaigns.
But what
I think
about
it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no? But what about taking it to its logical progression, where everybody gets into a virtual space?
Well, the people who want to get, like you were saying about change before, the people that want to change and get into that virtual space are going to get into it. And the people that don't, that still want to just like kick back and eat their devil dogs and roll their dice and, tell silly jokes with their friends and have funny backgrounds, are going to do the same thing. I don't think it's going to change that much in the effect that it's the people that want to see the 3D stuff are going to be the new people buying the product.
Well, let me ask you. Well, let me ask you a question. So, and this will give you a chance. I know you had brought
Go
this up a
ahead.
little bit, so I'm going to give you a chance to talk about it because I have thoughts on the topic, so it's if we're gonna alienate people or grow our fan base, we might as well say shit people aren't gonna like. But no, you have a very unique group and background and connection in that you run a game for people that have illnesses. And then there's been a lot of discussion in the world about accessibility of the game and inclusivity of the game, and you see things. Critical Role has had and has had in
Oh
NPCs
yeah, yeah, right.
and a player character with a disability that they find workarounds and then kind of hand wave some stuff and whatnot. And I make the joke. I think you've heard me make this joke before, But I have a whole joke about RPGs are great because if you're fat, your character can be athletic, and if you're cowardly, your character can be brave, so on and so forth. I won't go through the whole joke, but so my question is this though: if we got to a point where just like the Matrix, you sit down, you plug in, and you're able to in a very close to reality or hyper realistic setting inhabit a virtual avatar that is your character and do the running, the climbing, the fighting, feel the dragon's breath, all that kind of stuff,
Right.
without physically having to be up and
There.
up and running. But if you could have that kind of interaction, how do you think that people who really can't do this stuff, and don't get me wrong, I am a broken down old man who is definitely too fat for his own good with no functional arms, because I've damaged I've tore both my bicep tendons and never got them fixed. But I'm never going to be able to speak the words and have a lightning bolt fly from my hands. I'm not going to, I'm not probably never going to have Conan's body, but I have, and I like to play RPG games for the character and the stories and everything. And part of that is that escapism or being somebody else. And if you could lay me down on my little bed, plug me in, and I could run around as Conan in that body and do those things, man, I'd have a real hard time not doing that and just using my imagination, because it's fun to do it in my mind now because the Matrix or even the holodeck from Star Trek, those aren't realities for us right yet, but I think we're getting there.
Right. So what's your premise? You were going to ask me something. You said.
Yes. No. So my question is, my question is, you know, if that was a tool that was available to really get into that, and as we build to it, having like, hey, go ahead and put this headset on, and it's going to basically be like you're running around in Skyrim, and the DM can go in there and build the game and actually have the dragon, and the players can actually run around in first person like they're playing a video game. Is that something that, as a player in general, you think like you'd want to do? And then in specific, you have a group that has limitations because of illnesses and whatnot. Do you think that's more or less appealing to them than using just the Zoom? Like, would that be something that they're really clamoring for? That
Well,
would be good
well,
or
again,
desirable?
yeah, I think it is. I think for some people it is. For some people it isn't. I mean, for some people it is coming to see those friends, like when you go to an Alcoholics Anonymous group and you're around the table and you're talking about the nitty gritty of your life and the shit that really got you down deep. Um, it's funny you say that because even on Discords, when you go to some of these Discords, the chat that's going the most is real life advice. And players talking to other players and DMs about my mom did this and my dad did this, and they're turning to other role players because these people face situations. I mean, it's used for therapy now. No, I think role
Yeah.
playing is the future. The question we talking about virtual tabletops and who's going to get involved with it. Like I said, that's what they're trying to focus at. Look here, when I play a game of D&D,
Hmm.
I don't want to have my cell phone holding it up, holding it the right angle so I'm looking at the map so I can see my character in 3D on the map on the table, and the table's electronic and the phone's electronic. No, man, I just want to like hang out and talk to my friends. But you know what? Somebody else may want that completely
Well, what if?
immersive.
Okay.
I
Well,
want to see my characters. You know.
I know I no no that's why the reason I probably didn't phrase the question very well, or I was long winded, which is my bane in life. But no, I have other friends that say the same thing. Like, well, I don't want to have to mess around with this and that again, which is why our online game never really worked out. But here's my thing. But what if it gets to, like I said, if it gets to the point where, like, and I wear glasses, you wear glasses, where you just put on a comfortable pair of glasses and you just tap the side of them and everything shows up in augmented reality. And it's seamless like that, not clunky, not looking through your phone screen,
Oh
but like
well,
like that simple.
you're just asking if that happens. I mean, that's what everyone's been saying, man. That's Arthur C. Clarke's premise for 3001. If you have ever gotten to read that book, um, basically, computers are just going to be attached to our skulls, and you're going to be emailing directly from your head. It's not even glasses. We're going to be like, Johnny Mnemonic, plug it in.
Right.
I mean, is
Well,
that
no, and
coming? I think it is coming, but I don't know how
yeah.
far down in the pike it is. But
Well,
anyway,
that's what well, and I guess
we're
that's
all
the
bored.
core of my question is if it becomes seamless or at least easily accessible, would you leave the actual tabletop for the virtual options when they get to be that good?
I think you would. I mean, anybody would, especially people who can't walk or can't do anything. I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean,
All right.
that's been in sci-fi premise for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. So what's to wrap up the VTT thing? Is what has always frustrated me about all of them was the desire to have the high quality, well produced and put together game experience compared to the amount of time it's required to do that. That's my biggest drawback because when you sit down at the tabletop, everyone knows what to expect. You know, the DM's going to
well,
talk. Maybe
yeah,
they use
yeah.
maybe
No,
they
no,
use the
I
funny
got you.
voice.
No, but I think the big thing too, though, is using something like Roll 20. And when you're a good DM, you set up that module, and I'm sure you've run Roll 20
Yeah,
games. You run that game again; it's set. Your maps are set. How you're going to run it set. You probably even get better at it. The more times you run it over and
yeah,
over again. Um, and that's again talking about when you want to be paying to play a DM. They put hours and hours into prepping the map themselves that they've uploaded to Roll 20 themselves, to the custom assets they've made themselves, and what's it all worth? Um, but no, that's a great way to close that up. I wanted to move now into Discord because you were telling
okay.
me you have not been kind of like surfing the Discord since you've started using it. What do you use
No, I'm
Discord for besides Dungeon Studios, Dungeons and Dragons? Anything else?
I'm embarrassed to admit that in some ways I am a higher level computer user. I was doing that in college for a little bit. A PC gamer, console gamer, a little bit of tech support work, back in the day. And there are some things I use to death on here. Like I really try to get deep into using the Roll 20 and using the photo editing stuff so I could make maps and tokens and try to bring a visual element to my game. I
That's
did
funny.
paper.
That's funny. I went the other way. I was like on Facebook, like stealing every map I could possibly steal to have this massive map catalog myself without buying anything. It was that 2 minute tabletop or great stuff, great maps. Yeah,
Oh no,
go
and
ahead.
there's a ton of good stuff out there. Actually, which reminds me, there's one more virtual tabletop option type thing I wanted to bring up. But let me finish
Go ahead.
your question and this line of thought.
Go ahead.
So a lot of that stuff that I got really deep into and do a lot with. When it comes to the social media, and Discord is essentially that. I am literally like the old man in the room. Just to give you an example of this, when I tried to restart my podcast, and when I started to stream our D&D games, I tried to recruit my then 12-year-old to be our tech gerblin because she's all about that stuff.
Right, right.
And I thought that was going to be a good idea. It wasn't, because teens and preteens aren't very good at doing the things for hours that is like work, because they're not used to that. But I don't even scratch the surface on what I could be doing with these things.
All right, all right.
I'm
So
guessing that's not the same for you though. So how
no,
deep down the
no,
rabbit
and
hole do you go?
no, it's interesting because I don't see that much activity, and I'm on a lot of different servers. Um, there's a cool one called Venestra, and a lot of these I've kind of like snuck around into different Kickstarters, and you can kind of pop into their Discord and see what they're about. This one
You're
is
a
all
lurker. That's what you
yeah,
are.
no, man. It's free smash and grab. They want you to see their stuff. I participate. You do contests. Let me give you a little tour. All right. So in Venestra is Dragonborn, and their world setting is like Roman politics. Not a lot of monsters. All government politics and things like that, but all Dragonborn. Really, really kind of neat
Well, we all know
setup.
the real monsters are the people.
Now, have you ever heard of Beyond the Screen?
Why does that sound?
Beyond the scene,
That sounds familiar.
Avid, Beyond the Screen. Now, they do a lot of products for role playing, um, and again, they're cool with checking out all their different ideas that they're designing, um, and again, they have contests. They have writing prompts for people and things. They have, ask questions about rules. So it's kind of neat that you can go to all these different places, pitch ideas. Now, do you know Maddie P? Who Maddie P is?
Not at the moment. Maybe it might be something I know when you start talking about it, but not off the top of
Okay.
my head.
He does YouTube videos and YouTube notifications. Um, and Zapparon Disney. Have you heard of him? He's a YouTuber, does
Nope.
a lot of D&D stuff. He
You're saying
appears
Maddie B or Maddie P?
Maddie P.
P.
Maddie P. You're gonna have to do some research, man. There's tons of these guys out there. There's one Lost Smith. They're another Kickstarter. They have all kinds of supplements and things. Again, you can go in there, hang out, talk to people, ask questions. You know Matt Colville, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Matt Colville must have. He has like a mega Discord. Um, they're running all kinds of games, different game categories. His test plays have people coming all the time. Now, that's what you and I were talking about that too. Trying to get test players. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's like a ghost town out there. Um, there's one called What the Funk. All right. And these guys are really cool. Um, it's all public, it's all for charity, it's all for Make a Wish. And people go there and volunteer their time and DM. People go there and play. And all the money they raise there is for Make a Wish, and they have giveaways. I mean, it's totally amazing to me how many things are going on. That one Discord spawned another Discord in the past year called One Shot Fridays, and they run games every Friday night. Um, it just goes on and on and on. And then there's my boys out in Bristol, England, out in the cave. That this is just a crew I met when I first started test playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Luke, and they're like my guys out there. Um, they invited me in. When they go out to the bars, they take pictures and let me know what's going on and chat with them. Like I made so many friends. And you were just saying about when you're stuck inside. this has been great for me, meeting all these different people from all these different places. Um, there's RKDM. He's down in New Zealand.
Yeah.
You know him. He
That is the
does.
est- well, that is the esteemed Russell, the man
Yes.
with the best voice on the planet.
Yes, Russell's awesome. Again, Russell does all kinds of vampire fantasy stuff. My big
Yep.
problem with jumping in Russell's games is the time zones. You got to like set an alarm clock and get up like in the middle of the night to East Coast time to try to jump in on his games and stuff. It's crazy.
That's unfortunate. I wanted to get him, definitely as a guest, or at the very, if not, with us on a regular basis, because once I heard him speaking on tabletop cinema, I don't want to talk to him. I just want him to talk at me.
Russell's great. I love him. I love him.
There's just like he has a gravitas when he speaks, and that immediately comes across as like, oh, I need to listen to this person.
Yep. No, absolutely.
And that is impressive.
And I love listening to his show because he's awesome. He's so good. And the stories are so creepy. Anyway, there's
Yeah.
another
Well, no.
one.
Hey, I would like
Go
to
ahead.
ask you about him. I have some more questions about him in particular, if you have a minute.
Okay, I mean, I'm not an expert, but go right ahead. Go
Well,
ahead.
no. So things I didn't know. Excuse me. And since you've done some research, you can fill me in. So, did I hear correctly that he is a professional for running games? Like that's his job?
I know
Or
he does. I mean, I don't know personally, but he does do that. He runs professional games
okay.
down in New Zealand. He also runs free games. He runs pay for games.
Yep.
I
And
mean,
then
he's a
he
big deal.
has,
He has his
and then
whole he has his whole Discord and tons of folks in and out of there.
yeah, and then doesn't he either stream or at least upload games online?
Yes, and he
Yes.
also
Okay.
he uploads his stream, Dungeon Studios Discord, and I think he puts it some other places too. I'm not exactly sure where.
Okay. Yeah, I just figured since you brought him up, and I remember in the brief times he was able to join us for a couple of projects and things. I had heard those things, and I definitely have questions about that kind of stuff. But I thought he did streams and whatnot, or at least
No,
posted the play videos.
we're definitely hoping to get him on here with us for some broadcasts too. Definitely.
Yeah, I'd like to pick his brain about that stuff. So, but anyway, so he's another, again, like you said though, another person available on Discord.
I mean, they're everywhere, and the same thing. Like I had started Worldwide Monster Fight.
Yep.
And I was test playing monsters, and I had people from around the world playing with people from Indonesia, playing with people from Thailand. It was just awesome, and then I was able to refer them to other people. Say, hey, I know this guy. He's over in New Zealand. You can play with him. He's in close time zones, so it's neat. Have you ever heard of the Elder Brain?
That I have heard of.
All right, that's another pretty cool Discord. I bop in off there, all kind of mind flary kind of feel to it. Have you ever done any of the Northern Marches stuff? Have you ever gotten involved in any of that
Wait,
type
you
of
mean
campaign?
West Marches?
Yeah, West Marches. Sorry.
No,
My
sort of. I'm familiar with the concept.
Okay, so there's this one, Nexus, The Last Paradise. I'm looking at it. I'm like, should I get involved? I'm like reading all the rules. If you want to be this, you got to do this. And I just don't know if I could get myself that involved.
No, that's a lot. It's Well, do you remember to go back to the old school? Do you remember the RPG Network and Ravens Bluff, the Living City?
Oh, no, I don't think so. No.
Ooh. Well,
No,
let me
this sounds
fill you
very
in. This is
interesting.
the
No.
precursor.
Okay, go ahead. This is the
No, I'm
precursor
sorry.
to. No, go
No, it's
ahead.
the precursor to the kind of what you're talking about with the Discord thing, where before we had access to that kind of stuff through
Okay.
TSR, there was the RPG Network. You'd build official characters. You'd show up at conventions. You'd play everybody would play the same kind of official modules, and then there'd be report sheets that get turned in, and the
Okay,
results
okay.
of that season's modules would be worked into the actual in canon story of Ravensbluff for the next season. So
Oh,
your
that's neat.
character's
Gotcha,
exploits or your
gotcha.
group might have got somewhere. So they're doing that on Discord now, is what it sounds like you're explaining with
Right,
this
right.
with this channel. I think that's amazing because it gives you access to, instead of a few dozen people at a convention, it's millions of people worldwide
Right, right.
potentially.
And then I joined another one, Dragon Year Silent God. That one I just joined. I'm still like filling out all the, pronouns. And that's the other thing. When you get to these places, you got to follow all the rules. And I think that's another reason why I'm on all these discords, because I don't go in and be a jerk.
Okay.
Does that make sense too? I don't go in there and start, belittling people or whatever. I mean, that's not what it's about.
Are you saying
Now,
that's
D
why I'm not in the discourse?
no, no, no. And then of course D&D Beyond has their own. I
Yep.
always usually post ads there uh for for test players. There's another cool one, D&D Compendium. And they're really cool too because they're very open. It seems like just a bunch of players. You can have general dungeon master chat, ask questions about traps or items or world building, or they have monster workshops.
Yeah,
Um,
I have a there's one of the few I got into because I dipped my toe in there was through a Facebook group. The intention was wonderful. The people that ran the Facebook group set the Discord up, and and their whole thing was to provide a place for people to world build together. Like World Anvil has a Discord group,
right, right, right.
but this was a smaller Facebook group, and the idea was that you had people that came in there, and you had your older, more experienced DMs and writers, and then people that all the way down to day one DMs. And the idea behind it was great. Is that you people would join it, and then you'd be able to hop into various rooms, put posts up, and get feedback on ideas or look for adventure starters, or even have people come in there and kind
Yeah,
of build world build with you or work on your ideas with you.
that's very
You know,
similar to this one I'm talking
yeah,
about. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
So those I think those are great. I don't personally think they get utilized enough. I'll tell you right now.
That's
The
exactly what I was saying to you when we started. I said I'm
Yeah,
I'm listing all these things, and a lot of them are very, very dead. You'll see tons of people posting about games. But then like I posted on 3 different discords today, and I got one test player for a game in 2 weeks. I thought it would have got a lot more response
yeah. Well,
than that.
I think
Let
some of
me
that.
finish up. I got a couple
Oh,
more to
sorry,
finish up here.
sorry.
I got
Hit
just
me
a
up.
couple more. We have a Discord and Dragons, which I mean that one you just find from searching, and then I think that's another public run one. Of course, I'm in a Curse of Strahd
Yeah,
because they're awesome too, and that place has been great. You're in the middle of the Amber Temple. You can go in there, like 18 different DMs are like, I added this or I put this or that one. I love that. I love that place. Um, and then my homies up at Irrepressible RPG up in Canada. They run a small little RPG business. Very, very friendly up there. That's where I did my Marvel test play. So I got to give them a shout out while I'm talking about my Discord friends. Um, but it's been great. And then you started messing with some of them, and like of course, I'm in Dungeon Scrawl and I'm in Incarnates, and then I also do a lot of night cafe lounges, some AI art, and I love my rock and roll. So I got my Queen and my Doctor Who and my Star Trek and my Star Wars. No, I think I'm up to like 35 or 36 Discord channels.
I have like
It,
5.
That's great though. And then of course Dungeon Studios.
Yeah,
And I mean, I made the transition from Facebook, looking for players on Facebook, and got invited into test play, and took off. It's been a year, and 36 Discord channels later. Talking about social media, YouTube and Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yep.
What when I say YouTube and Dungeons and Dragons, who are like the first 3 or 4 YouTubers that you think of? Now, Matty P was one of them that I was talking about. He's a YouTuber. He does
Right.
not come to the top of my list when to be honest, for me.
So you were asking my
Yeah. What
my
would you
like
say your
the
list is? If I just said
well
them.
for YouTube content stuff, depends on what you're looking for and your particular into it. So my list is a little bit skewed. So like
No, I want to
let's
hear your list that is skewed. That'd be
no,
awesome. Go
I'm getting
ahead.
there. I'm getting there. Well, first of all, we're gonna you gotta be fair, and you gotta start with the what is the Wolverine to the rest of the X-Men. When it comes to streamers, Wolverine's just the best one. There's no reason to put him in your list because everyone agrees he's the best X-Man. So top of the list, obviously, would for the last 6 years, would be Critical Role. There's no getting around that.
Okay. No.
Entertaining. D&D show. It's brought light to the hobby and brought in millions of people. And
Absolutely.
I can
Absolutely.
I can go on and on about it. I will spare everybody the pain of hearing that could be its own show.
And haters are going to hate, but they
Of
did
course.
what they did. They did what they
My
did.
my next two though,
Hats off.
is going to be Matt Colville,
Yep.
and then there's one who I listen to a lot of, and then I kind of fell off. But the series, but I would be remiss by not, mentioning it. The series is called How to Be a Great GM
Okay.
by Guy, and I can't remember his last name. I'll look it up here in a second.
Yeah,
So,
I do know who you're talking about.
yeah,
Yes. How to be
yeah.
a great
There was
GM.
So I listened to a ton of the of his older stuff, and then he's got a good number of subscribers. Yeah, Guy, what's his name? It's in here somewhere. A lot of good stuff. But then for me, because I like to make my own maps, and then obviously I paint and I do the terrain. When I'm not looking for tips or content kind of stuff, then what I'll get into is WASD 20,
Okay.
which is
Okay.
he does regular content. He live streams some game. He does have some game videos up there. But Matt from WSD 20 is, I think it's Matt. God, I hope I don't get that wrong. I feel really stupid for like the 3 people on the internet that are going to hear this. But he is an exceptional fantasy cartographer. Exceptional. Him, and then there's another series of videos. And that guy, I can't think of the guy's name, but he's phenomenal as well. So you can watch and learn how to draw maps. So those guys are up there. For the painting, I'm really all over the place of finding people, streamers I like to learn things from.
Right.
But there's
Right.
Geek Gaming Scenics, and one of my favorite ones is Devs and Dice.
Okay. Okay.
With Leaf the Viking. Super cool channel, and a lot of simple build kind of stuff. If you wanted to get into it, it's a good place to start. Real good guy. And then lastly, for like the actual painting, there's a bunch of people on there to paint miniatures. That's really a very taste kind of thing. So I have dozens of those that I'll watch to get tips and
Interesting.
whatnot. Oh
Interesting.
yeah,
Because I wouldn't even list any. I know how to be a great GM.
yep,
I don't know his name though.
yeah. I know it's a
Gosh,
guy.
great
I
games,
can't.
game master. But anyway, so no. Now I was surprised. My first, when I got back, hit YouTube, and I'm gonna be a player. I ended up crossing the Dungeon Dudes.
Yeah. See, I
Right now,
not a fan.
I like the Dungeon Dudes. They're straight and to the point. Not my favorite, but I mean they are quite popular, and it's I think they're great for beginners. So I got to
Okay.
give it up for them that way. Um, the other two I really really enjoy Dungeon Craft with Professional Dungeon Master. Have
Yeah,
you seen
I
him?
listen to a lot of those. Sometimes he annoys me, but I listen to a lot of them.
Okay, okay. I think I may have worked with him at one time in a school. That's why I'm all right.
Really?
Listening to him. No, I'm only joking. I had never worked with him. Just saying that kind of person.
Yep.
I feel like I know that whole genre there. The other one I really like is um, Bob World Builder.
Yep. I've listened to him before
Um,
too. Not too
and
bad.
I
Hey,
have a lot in common with him being a outdoor educator before being in Dungeons and Dragons. So it's kind
nice.
of neat. Now, have you ever
Hey,
heard of
before
Lunch?
him, let
Go
me
ahead.
stop you right there, really quick. We're at about the 1 hour mark. I'd like to take a quick break. I'm going to cue the music and take about 5 minutes, and
All
we
right.
can pick up where we left off. Does that work
Excellent.
for you?
Excellent.
All
Excellent.
right.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry for the abruptness of the break there. I didn't have a good way to lead it in. Enjoy the tunes. We'll be back in a few minutes. And we're back. And I definitely need to figure out how to auto slide that up and down so I don't have to do it manually every time.
That's definitely true.
So,
All
sorry for
right.
the weird edit, because I'm sure there's going to be one. I wanted to get back to the what you were saying about the channels that you
Yeah.
follow that you like,
YouTube
and
channels.
your three
So
in particular. The I don't care. I just cannot listen to Dungeon Dudes, but you like them. So what do you
well,
like
no,
about them?
no, it's like I said, because remember I started with Girl Scouts, and like I said,
Yep.
they're good for beginners,
Okay.
and they're family orientated. If you're talking about basic stuff, and let's be honest, they're raw. The rules is written, guys, and they offer some homebrew here and there, and the one guy wears great shirts. I love his t-shirts. But anyway, that enough about that. No, the other one I wanted to get into was Lunch Break Heroes. Have you
Okay.
ever heard of them?
I have not.
Okay. Really, really good. Now they definitely go more into the horror and the Ravenloft and all that. But they do have a lot of free, grab stuff. And they have a lot of great YouTube videos. The presenter is really, really good. Um, we talked about Dungeon Craft already with our boy
Professor Dungeon
Professor
Master.
Dungeon Master. Um, the other one, oh, Nat 20, one of our artists at Dungeon Studios.
Yeah.
He has his own channel. The one thing I love about his channel is very relaxing just to watch him do his art.
Really?
Yeah, it's really cool. And the other thing he does, he uses some of the other Dungeon Studios partners for music. So there's like really cool music playing, and you watch him draw the art in fast motion. Then some of them he does in slow motion, and then he does sometimes there's like a little story that he does that goes along with the character. So I really enjoy that. It's very relaxing, and I love it. Um, I was talking about Hour of the Raven, our last show for Ravenloft stuff. Again, I got to recommend that you check out Hour of the Raven if you're a Ravenloft guy. Um, Beyond the Screen, we were talking about their Discord.
Yep.
Their YouTube channel is just as good. Lots of great stuff. How to play different characters, how to play high-low fantasy. Um, I do enjoy them, and I mean, being a DM for 3-4 campaigns a week, you go see these guys, and get some other pointers. You to get some little things, that just sort of like launch it into something new, and it's great. And that brings me all the way back around because you're talking about watching people paint.
Yep.
Um, when I first got back to it, the game, I found a free module by this guy called the Robinator. Um, and I didn't realize at the time, Robinator has 192,000 subscribers. This guy just draws dice, man. He does dice.
Really?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Hold on. I'm researching these as we go.
Yeah, yeah, the Robinator. Now it's funny because again, I thought D&D was this small little world. I still hadn't even been on Discord yet. I found him on YouTube because he had this free module. I redid his maps using like my own, like hack and slay digital art, and then sent them back to him like, look what I made for you. But it's funny because this comes full circle for the show tonight. I opened up with Mammoth Factory, right? And they had their big
Yeah.
release. Robinator did the video review for Mammoth Factory on their figures for their last release. So it's kind of like a weird, circle thing for me. So we'll come all the way back to the Robinator making dice. And like I said, it's amazing to me to see how far the game has come from just me and my friends in a basement in the 80s to this guy having this many viewers watching him make dice. It's great.
Yeah, we had a big we had the big Code Red scenario. To this day, I still joke around it. I came up in the era where it was definitely not a cool hobby.
Okay.
Not the kind of thing you admitted to playing, and very kind of cliquey, at the time. So we would always talk about it. Depending on, you had to know who you were around, and then if your buddy called you to talk about the game, but you were around somebody cool or in mixed company, you'd be like, "Hey, I'm a little Code Red right now, but what do you got going on?"
Yeah, code words. Yeah.
And people would be like, what did you say? I go, "Oh no, I was telling my buddy, what's going on." "Oh, okay." None the wiser. And it's funny you mentioned the play testers. And finding people and that whole thing. And not that I'm not going to get back to some of your choices for channels and whatnot, because I find that to be fascinating. Like the different things people watch. I find myself getting sucked into weird ones, like things that I have nothing to do with, like the videos where like they restore knives or old weapons and whatnot. Like, I will watch those. I watch them on silent too. There's no sound. I'm just watching them like, I don't know, grind rust off a 5,000-year-old sword.
Yeah, that's like an MSNR thing you got going on.
See, I don't have the sound on though, but I don't like the sound on. But watching them. So it's just interesting why people gravitate towards things. Like I said, like I don't care for the dungeon dudes. They have good content. Not to the saying that they have bad content. It's just something about it. And then I'm like with the professor there, Dungeon Craft. I watch crafting videos and I watch a lot of his content, but every now and again I'm just like, I just something about listening to what he's talking about will throw me off.
And if the topic goes off. Now, have you ever heard of Seth Skordowski?
DM Seth?
Yeah, Seth Skordowski does a lot of Call of Cthulhu. He's an author also.
Yeah. Okay.
He's great. He does a lot of funny videos where he dresses
up. Yeah, he plays
like
different characters and everything. Yep.
Yeah, no,
he's
really good. Does combat.
Yeah, like I said, there's I'm weird about it, man, because there's some that like I would listen to the videos and then just I guess I'll put this out there. So as we're getting our sea legs here with this podcast and talking, obviously, there's production stuff that we're working on, getting our flow together. Conversations, obviously, are going to be hit or miss, every so often, and you got to find that right. You got to find that right balance. So I get that there's a learning curve on a lot of these things, and there's some growing pains and whatnot. And I find that with some of the creators, once I start to see and become aware of them doing stuff to kind of game the algorithm and falling into this, like, I think it's a trap, really. The falling into this trap of having to make certain kinds of videos, as soon as that starts happening, I'm like, oh, I gotta stop. I can't. Like how the overblown drama, the clickbaity headlines and all that kind of. And I'm just like, it turns me off. There's a handful of creators that I watched originally, and then I started to see that, and I'm like, okay, I know why this video is getting made. And I'm just like, oh,
that makes sense. No, that does make sense though. I mean, if that's your gig, you're trying to keep making your money and you got sponsors, you've got to do what.
Oh yeah, that's the trap when you get to that spot. But there are some that like, so to your point about Seth, right? The content of his I've watched where he has he's every character in the table kind of thing. Like I found him interesting, and I listen to a bunch of those. There are other YouTubers that present their D&D discussion / content in the same format, where different.
Let's say they're not as polished or as well,
or they're just over. They're just annoying. I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah. Well, that's YouTube has that. There is no it's your choice to watch someone or not watch someone, and there's a lot of what would you call, a lot of kind of some narcissism, a little bit here and there with some of it as well.
It's like whenever I give my opinion, I know that I'm correct. So that wears on some people. I probably wouldn't listen to me if I found me as a podcast. But anyways, that is so. I got distracted there.
Well, that's pretty bad. That's going to be pretty bad for us then, I would think.
I know, right? It's terrible. Shit. Well, I mean, as long as everyone accepts the fact that I'm always right, we're okay. So.
Well, and the fact is that we love D&D and we play it all the time. And, if that's what you do, that's why you're listening to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And so back to the point I was starting to answer you, and I get distracted. So yeah, when it comes to finding players, right? It was always a struggle back in the day because, like I said, you didn't want to out yourself. You didn't want to bring on the social scorn, and if you had a mixed friend group, like I grew up in a weird spot. Like I'm not a small person. I never got into organized sports in school, but I played sports with my friends, at home, pick up basketball games, pick up football games, all that kind of stuff. So I had that group of friends, and then I had my cool, headbanger. Well, we weren't really cool, like so that those cliques that I hung out with. I did theater, so I had those nerds as friends, and whatnot, and and then I had the nerds. So I had a bunch of different groups, so. Pretty much all the nerds knew each other, right? But not everybody was in your. Right. It was not everybody was in your play group, and it was really hard to find other people. And we tried one time, at the local game store, pulling somebody off the cork board, and it was not a great experience. It didn't go well. And then others, and then we had other groups that we would kind of intersect with. So a couple of us would play in somebody else's group for a little bit or whatever. And
yeah, I was an intersector myself.
Yeah, it never seemed to stick.
Right.
Like you were always the outsider to their group. And while we had one a Shadowrun campaign that went on for a while, a good bit of time. It was probably a few months, which is a lot when you're 16. But where it was two distinct groups. It was Trevor and his people, and then me and my people. And it worked out for a little bit because there were some common connections, but never long term. Those guys went back to their group, we went back to ours. Now in the digital age, and you have a lot more experience with this because you're much more active, as is evidenced by the 897,000 people that on Discord, and said hi to this evening. Like I don't have all those connections, the same that you do. I would have assumed that you would have no problem finding people because from my limited exposure, I see probably a half dozen posts a day. Anybody in Kenosha, Wisconsin? Anybody in Georgia? Anybody in Mogadishu play D&D? And I'm like, well, there's probably no local games there, but man, like you're on the internet. I just assumed there would be this just horde of people, and this is even before the great nerd explosion here.
And I agree with you that I should have more response, but I think it goes right back to what you were saying about pulling the name off the corkboard. I think there's something about when you get in, you have to give up a little bit of yourself to start playing in another campaign till you get in the group. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think it's the social part of it that's the problem, or the committing the time that's part of the problem?
Well, it's both,
Okay.
Because the same thing, like let's say like Mammoth Factory is a good example. I started hitting the right time when they put their play tests up, so I started making their play tests pretty regularly. But then of course, I'm telling my wife, well, I got a game this Saturday, yeah, and in 2 Saturdays I got another game, and then in 2 Saturdays I got another game. So I have that exception there too, that I can keep getting these Saturdays off to play because I'm taking care of business during the week. I have my time on the weekend. um, but other people can't play consistently like that. Something comes up, you got to go to Aunt Josie's, or
Yeah.
you know, stuff happens. And the funny thing is, that's why test playing should be easier because they're not long term commitments. You're not saying, I'm going to be here every Friday for 3 months like it's going to be a long term campaign. So I'm also very confused why I can't get test players a lot of times. Um, it's very confusing. People are like, "Oh, I don't want to play a test play." Why not? It's a module you've never seen before. Doesn't that make it even better? I love test playing. That for that
Yes. Yeah.
very
That's
reason.
that's weird to me. So well, so we ran into a problem with our test play and one of the character choices, and the complaint was that they just wanted to play the thing as it was written, and how do you know if it's broken without if it's never been played before? Well, first of all, because I've done this for a lot of years, so I can see where there's problem. Like there's going to be a problem with this, but besides that, but like that player was interested in doing that, and they played the module for their own reasons and everything.
Right. That's exactly it. Everybody's there for their own reason, even if they're a test player.
Yeah,
That
but
becomes
yeah,
the thing.
I don't get this is it's to your point, like like some people are looking for something different. Okay, fair enough, but every game, every runner of the game, every DM, GM, whatever you want to call them. I like to call them narrators because I tell a story. Very modest, by the way. I'm not conceited at all, and not a narcissist, as far as you know. But no, every DM's different. The style of game is different. The player group is different, and I would have and for me, that's always the hurdle. And I will admit that I am a bit of a narcissist. Like one of my things that had kept me from trying to find a group to play in online when there wasn't a game, when I didn't have a game going on, and had the free time was, well, I'm not running it, so I don't know that the game's going to be the style I want. I don't know that the players are going to play the way that I want.
See, that's the thing too. I think that changes too in a test play. Like when I walk into a test play, I'm not there to be the murder hobo.
Right.
I'm there to test play, and I'm asking, who's everyone being, and then like in this test play, no one
Hmm.
picked fighter, so I'm like, well, someone's got to be a fighter for the test play, so I picked the fighter, and I'm gonna play this to the hilt. It was great.
Well, I mean, I don't think.
Everybody's worried about the crystal not falling down. I just went through everything blows up. Hooray! I'm the fighter. No, it's great. And then the same thing, like I said, then it's not a commitment because what do we got? One more game to play, right? To finish out the adventure,
One, maybe two.
maybe two, and then I'm done. And then if I got to do something with my wife or my family, we want to do something, that's great. That's why I love test playing.
Yeah. Well,
When
so this is the thing that I was going to say. The thing that makes me wonder about the struggle then is what's the obstacle. So if you say, oh, well, it's a social thing. Well, I don't want to get into a game with the people I don't know or a DM I don't like. Well, it's a test play. You only have to play one session. But
right,
what if
right.
you find a players, people you get along with, players you're like a DM that you enjoy? Sure, you're doing a test play, but I mean, you are auditioning them as people you're going to want to connect with, just the same as they are auditioning you as somebody they're going to want to connect with. Why not try that? I would think that would alleviate the social part of it because you don't have the commitment. You don't have that pressure to keep coming back if you don't enjoy it or you don't like the group. I think it'd be the perfect thing for that reason as a way in for people.
No,
But you're saying you're
absolutely.
not getting anybody.
No, but that's what happens too. I mean, I have some test players and then they leave.
Yeah.
They play for a while, a couple months, and then or their job, their shift changes or whatever. And like I was talking about the guys in Bristol, England, I was test playing with them for a while. The one guy, Luke, was a DM. We became good. That's how we became friends. Sitting across the table. So I think that's the other neat thing is I've made friends across the table, and now we're friends outside of the game. Besides that, so that's kind of cool too.
Yeah. So how do we? So
How do you get test plays? Facebook, I don't seem to get much response at all. Though everyone always seems to be looking for games on
yeah,
both
exactly, right?
sites, which is very strange to me. Um, the other one is I always put stuff out on Facebook, and a lot of the administrators don't want to share stuff. Like, well, why should
Yeah,
I
that
share?
I don't. That I've run into that a couple of times when we were setting up the D&D for DMD, the charity that event that we ran.
Okay,
There were a lot of there were people there were some there were mods that just wouldn't even respond. I'm like, hey, look, hey, we have this going on. We're trying to, we have we're planning on streaming this. We're trying to get people, to watch it so we can, collect donations. Here's all my information. Here's the charity. Here's the date. Here's the store. I will provide you anything you want to prove that I'm not trying to scam people.
right, right.
And
Well,
some of them would never respond, and others were just like, yeah, no, we won't. We don't do that in our channel in this group. Like, why? Why not?
well, no, and it's funny because the same thing. Like we did that first cast, right? That first stream, and I said, "Oh,
Yep.
let me share this out on Facebook." And then I'm like, you know what? Let me message some of these admins first because if I just send it cold,
Yep.
they're going to be like, who the hell is this? We're not sharing this. But meanwhile, we just want to be fans and share stuff with other fans. But you just get shut down. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, like how many like so for the painting in particular or the crafting part of it. Like I join those groups and then somebody's like, "Hey, check out this guy's tips video," and I'm like, "Sweet!" And I subscribe to that person. I'm like, "I'm so glad that I got exposed to this crafter because maybe I wouldn't have found him otherwise."
Right, right.
And the same thing would apply to this. So if the test play doesn't alleviate the social barrier where it's new people are, do I want to expose myself, who are they, because you're not really locked into anything.
Well, now,
And then is it a mechanical thing where people are saying, well, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be bothered with rules or things that don't work. Like, is it something about not wanting to engage in a non-finished product?
I don't know. And the other thing I wonder sometimes is that people just scared to play. There are a lot of people. I mean, there was a statistic out there where people were on beyond just making characters and not playing. Like, there's a ridiculous amount of people that are just making dips over and over again, sort of in like a video game sort of format. Like, I can make the best character ever, but they're not actually playing the game. So to me, that's a whole nother puzzling aspect to the game. You have people just making characters, and then what's that place where you go and you make your little figure
Hero
online?
Forge.
Yeah, and people going to Hero Forge and then saying, "Get what's your impression of my character?" I mean, that was driving me crazy on Facebook.
Oh, I remember that.
Oh
That's
my gosh, what are we talking about here? Um, like I didn't even know what we were doing that for. And that's what I'm saying. Is that what the game has turned into? And then someone can't actually come up against DMs, experienced DMs, because they have no idea what to do. Is that what it comes down to? They're only comfortable with their group, like we were when we were 12 or 13.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I would think not when you have all these resources and all these people with all this experience to play with and that are ready to have a good time.
Yeah, well, especially now because so much of social interaction has moved into a digital space through
Right.
an app and whatnot. I would think that again, those things would be gone. So it's not the social aspect. It's not maybe it's a mechanical one because you don't want to play something that's unfinished. But I mean, that's every homebrew game out there is unfit. It's I warn my players about that all the time. I say, look, I've written and done the first arc of this campaign a couple times, but when we get to arc two, like I'm writing that right now. You're gonna get the first draft. It might suck,
Now let
you
me ask
know.
you this: do you think maybe it's a backlash from COVID? Like people are done being virtual? Like even though there's all these opportunities to play test modules and all this
No,
stuff
see, I
virtually?
don't think so. And I'll loop back to the earlier thing that I was talking about about how far do we go with the virtual part of it from all the way up to the holodeck all the way up to the Matrix. I just think that people have moved away from that because and I've dealt with it. I deal with it in like real life, right? In my group where there are people that before I started the games in town, they lived two doors down from each other, had no idea that the other person played, and we're like, it's like, oh yeah, I play in two games, yeah, we play online Mondays and Wednesdays. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I go, well, hey, I'm starting up a group. I'm like, really? And well, and they're committed to that, to playing online. Like that's what they were doing
Right, right.
before I offered it. Even though there are plenty of people that I've run into in town that are capable of running games, that are willing to play in games, and there's a bunch of different systems and whatnot. But there weren't games going on.
Well, I was gonna say I mean the only way I think the thing for me is I remember some of the games in the past, great memories, but the only way you make more great memories is to keep playing. And I think there's some people that don't play because oh that game was the best. Nothing's gonna beat that. But you just got to keep playing because you experience new things and have more fun with the game. That's the point, right? I mean,
Yeah, no,
anyway.
and I said I think and so much with modern society is moved online and through a digital medium. Like I would think that that barrier of finding a group is completely gone, finding players completely gone, time zone scheduling, none of those things matter anymore. Like I know it's like it would be like for example it would be awkward, sorry, not awkward, that's the wrong word. It would be a challenge to be a consistent player for Russell, RKDM.
Right, right. Like we were
If
talking about
if
earlier.
if I got to get up at 2 in the morning to get his catch his game at 6 o'clock for him, like
Right.
that's a heavy lift. I get that, but well, maybe not many people have as good a voice. There's hundreds of DMs, if not thousands, that you could pay to play with, and many more that are free online if you just connect with them, and then location doesn't matter. But yeah,
Right.
like you said, people aren't playing the game.
Well, maybe that's something I'll look into next week too. How many people are actually already, being paid to play? We have no idea of any of those numbers. I
Yeah,
know
I always
there's
felt hinky about that. Something just seems wrong in my old school brain about like charging people to play. I know it's a lot of work on the DM side to
yeah,
to do the games, but
again, I feel like with my friends, it's something you play. It's you play a game like you
yeah,
would go hang out with them. It's not something you pay for, but you're setting up roll 20 with 3D action and everything else for everybody, then maybe it is worth some money. I don't know. It's growing into a whole new thing. That's definitely for sure.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe the issue we're running into is maybe people need to be part of the community before they take the step of playing the game. So, I mean, I'm just spitballing. Like I said, you have a lot more time in this than I do. I wonder if maybe that's the thing is that to for say, hey, it's like, hey, yeah, we got games on Tuesday. You're free. Come hop in and play right now. Maybe that is there's something about that that's daunting, and that makes those people go, nah. I mean,
Well, I've
like
tried everything. I've tried everything. I've tried scheduling games on roll 20
all right,
ahead of time to see if somebody will ping. Then I've tried last minute. And it's weird. And like I said, today I hit a couple Facebook pages, couple Discords. I did get one new player. And then hopefully that crew will keep growing. And you see, like we had our test play, you had your crew, I had my crew.
Yeah.
We pulled our crews together. We had a full test play go off. Uh, and that's how it seems to be, more and more connections. I've had some test players from Mammoth come over to Dungeon Studios and help us out.
Nice.
I had some Dungeon Studios people go help them out. And that's how it gets
Right.
done, right?
Let me ask you to continue on what I was thinking. Have we tried getting them to come in to join to join us with no expectation to like, hey, it's like, the
No,
Lurkers Lounge,
no,
and then
absolutely. No, Dungeon
and then
Studios.
chat with those people, and you just schedule the social, not the game. Like, hey guys, hey, on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be hopping in the Lurkers Lounge, and feel free to join. We'll shoot the shit for a little bit, and I'm available if you guys have any questions about things coming up. You can get to know people, and just have a little social room for that.
Well, that's what I think. That's what I think Discord is good for. The problem is
Yeah.
there's not people always available. You know what I mean? Like when you go to any of these sites, you can't you don't get to talk to anybody really. You're leaving a message in a room, so somebody may get back to you right away. So that's a little bit different too. I It's all very interesting to me. It's still we'll get some test players, and it's not going to be a problem uh, because they're great adventures.
I'd like to think so.
You were talking about earlier, leaving that two-dimensional map and going into up and down vertical,
Yep.
spaces, isometric maps. Um, it definitely, kind of tickles the players' minds, I think, when you start going off the flat map.
Yeah, I could never quite get my head around the people that are staunchly theater of the mind people. Like, and I've heard the argument like, well, I'm not here to play a war game. Like, well, 90% of the rules are how you stab monsters in the face.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I say that my group is very much theater of the mind, but it also comes down to it. They know what, tanking through the combat means. And at that point, that is not theater of the mind. It's just like, okay, which monster's next? But when it's time to stop and role play, th- they have no problem. They don't need the battle map. Because I think that's another thing that's kind of interesting between, the older players and the newer players. What we were talking about earlier with Roll20, um, older players can sit there and have a battle with orcs without the battle map. I found that younger players, like, they're right away are like, how far away are they? 25 feet, and they're already like measuring. They want the tape measure and the apps to work everything. It's interesting to me. I don't know if it's an age thing, if you've seen that at all.
Well, see, I'm of a younger vintage than you are, chronologically, but once, like I said, my first exposure to the game was the kind of the classic. DM has a backpack full of books. He explains some stuff and then kills you with a fireball to the face. 5 minutes in, but it was all in your head, and then I tried that and had numerous problems with it, but once we had the first, like, oh, there's minis in a little map like a board game, and the distances are here. Never went back, and would never consider going back to not
Okay.
having that.
Okay. Right. Okay.
And I'm old.
Okay. No, I see that. I see that. No, it just became. I think that's become really, really a big, big part of the game now. And there's a lot of people that, like I said, will not do a test play unless you're on roll 20. It's very intriguing to me.
Yeah, I will say one of the things I meant to bring up with the virtual tabletops before is a a a down step on the software, but an improvement on the visuals. We have software floating around, at Dungeon Studios from an outside source that is a means for the DM to build a game, and it has all these 3D maps there that you have some control over. You can trigger the lightning bolts or the spinning blades or whatever. Awesome! Like I'm looking at, I'm like, this is so cool, and you can build the whole game in the software. The
Right.
downside is, unlike a virtual tabletop, this is just an app, and there's a player window, so there's not so you can have stuff the players don't see everything, right? But you would just have to stream on Discord's great for this, so it works really well with the medium. But you stream the window that the players see, but you have to move the tokens for them. You'd have to do any measuring. They'd have to roll dice on their own somewhere outside of the software, kind of thing. But every map was an animated 3D map, and I saw the skyship one because that was relevant to.
Right.
I was trying to find a way to put that in Roll20 for as the first splash screen for our game when it starts. I should have had what I should have had was artwork. That's another one of those things I'm going to tweak, but. Like I wanted to have it. Like there was no combat on the skyship. Wasn't going to happen. But like you had the skyship that had a grid on it, so you guys don't know there's no fight's going to happen. But it was just the sound effect, the creaking of the ropes, the wind, birds flying below the ship.
That's neat. That's neat.
Awesome. But you can't do it. You couldn't do it in Roll20. But you can because of Discord and things like that. I can visually show you guys the map. I can put tokens on it. I have to control the movement and everything. But you can tell me where to go.
No, that's cool though. That's really cool. All right,
So
now wait.
not quite as good as a VTT, but having those 3D animated maps would be amazing.
Now before we close up and everything, I have
Yep.
to go back because that's where we started the show. I want to thank Rambi Tambari and Dave Thurmavor. I think I'm saying that right. Thurmavor. These are the two article writers for the VVT stuff that I got their data from. You got to credit the authors for their stuff before we go. So I want to thank them for their information and helping lead our discussion. And you did a great job before, by the way. You kind of knew a lot of the stuff before I hit it. So
Oh, well, thank you.
here's to you. Hats off. Hats off. Very
I
nice,
appreciate that.
very nice. Very nice, as we
Thank
say.
you. Thank you very
nice.
much. So, all right. Well, a lot to get through there. So, bits and pieces to discuss, things to think about. And I would close on this for any prospective people and players and whatnot. Check us out. Join
Yeah.
up, hang out, listen.
Give us
We're going to keep
ideas you
doing these
wanna hear about.
conversations.
Let us
What?
know what you want. Let us know what you want to hear about, man. I mean, I like doing research, so hit us up.
Yeah, absolutely. Join, like, subscribe, follow wherever you happen to find the podcast. Check out Dungeon Studios. Get in the Discord, and like I said, lurk around a bit. Join the playtest. There's a lot going on.
Game. Lurk around
That's a good way.
Discord like the doctor, like the good doctor.
Yeah, but it's a good way to meet people and find things. But thanks to the 0 people on the internet listening to us ramble on, going back and forth. We'll be back next week with the 3rd episode, and.
Happy Halloween!
Yeah, it is Halloween today. The show won't be out until after, unfortunately, but we'll be better prepared for that next year. So, thanks for listening. And as I keep working on my closing phrase, I keep coming up with iterations. You play RPGs because they're games because they're a game without limit. So why listen to conversations that are any different? Have a good night. Enjoy yourself, internet. And we'll see you next time.
And remember, in life, always be ready to roll initiative.
Good night.